Hey everyone, my guest today is Tony Award winner Betty Buckley. Wildly celebrated as the voice of Broadway, she won the Tony Award for her unforgettable performance as Grizabella in Cats. She also earned acclaim for starring roles in Sunset Boulevard, 1776, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, and many, 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 many other Broadway productions. Film audiences know her from memorable performances in films like Tender Mercies, Carrie, Wyatt Earp, and M. Night Shyamalan Split, and so many more. Television viewers remember and love her so much as Abby Bradford on the hit drama Eight is Enough, along with so many standout appearances on so many acclaimed series. But also, ladies and gentlemen, drumroll please, she is adding another exciting chapter to her already extraordinary, unprecedented career with the release of a brand new album, Enough, which is a recording of a live concert she did at Joe's Pub in New York City. I had the distinct pleasure of being an early listener to this glorious, glorious collection of songs from so many different areas of life and your life, I imagine. So, without further ado, welcome Betty Buckley to the podcast.
Thank you, Anna. So nice to see you.
It is nice to be seen. Had you seen me 5 minutes ago, and you can still tell there was such a crazy torrential downpour in New York City. So blow
That's good to get rid of the heat, right?
the heat, but also got rid of the blow dry. But you know what? What I do for the environment, you're welcome, America.
Well, I just got done with a workout. My hair was like drenched, so
Yeah, that's because you
it's
were
still
doing
hot here in
so.
Texas. So,
So
so
you're in Texas.
yeah.
How cool. Are you near where you grew up?
Um, I'm about an hour away from where I grew up.
And
For the most part. My dad was in the Air Force, and our home base was Fort Worth, but then we lived in Morocco when I was five, six, and seven. Then we moved back to Fort Worth. Then we moved to Maine for the year I was in the fourth grade. And then the year I was in the fifth grade, we moved back to Fort Worth. And my dad retired from the Air Force because there was me and my three other brothers, my three younger brothers, and he wanted to settle in Fort Worth. So then I went to my fifth, sixth grade, junior high, high school, and college at TCU in Fort Worth.
wow, it's so incredible to me how many artists I admire grew up in military families and how much being able to kind of find other people who loved performing or the arts wherever they were was somehow, or could be for some, like a very stabilizing thing. Like I was talking to Julianne Moore, and she said, whatever army base I went to and whatever school I went to every year, the theater auditorium looked and smelled the same, kind of no matter where she was. And I wonder, are you someone who found a love of performing as a young person, or did that come to you later in life?
Well, I sang in church from the time my mother said I was two.
Wow.
And I studied dance with my aunt from age three, who was a professional dancer. My mother had been a singer dancer, and my aunt, had a dance studio. So I studied with her, and was in her recital every year when I was a kid. And then when I was 11, my mother took me to see a pajama game at our regional theater, Casa Manana, and I was so smitten by whatever that was that I was seeing. And there
Yeah.
was a great classic Fosse number. It was with the original Bob Fosse choreography and design and everything. And I loved Steam Heat. So I told my mother I wanted to learn that to audition for the junior high talent show. And so she was very excited because my dad had basically told her she couldn't continue to perform when she got married. So she was thrilled when I manifested this love for music and the musical theater. And it turned out that the lead dancer and the choreographer of that production of Pajama Game, they had danced with Fosse for many years and done a lot of his shows. And Ed Holliman, it was Ed Holliman and Larry Howard. And
Yeah.
Ed Holliman, they were a couple, and he had grown up in Fort Worth, and they decided they wanted to retire and open a dance studio in Fort Worth They were tired of traveling on the road and stuff. And it just that just timed with my um, yearning to learn steam heat. So my mother took me to them to teach the number to me, and my performing started then, and they became my mentors. And I studied tap, ballet, jazz, and every year with my mother's facilitation, I would do a new song and dance for the Morning Follies. I did Steam Heat one year. The next year I did Who's Got the Pain when they do the mambo. and
Yeah.
then and then I did a medley, a showbiz medley the following year. Anyway, by the time I was 15, I made my theatrical professional debut at the Casamagnana Summer Theater, and I played June and Gypsy and danced in West Side Story that summer. And then when I was 16, I was in the campus review at Six Flags Over Texas, and then the following summer, I sang at the Crazy Horse Saloon at Six Flags. So I was working from age 15, and every year I would do a new show at Casa Manana. Thankfully, they cast me, and by the time I got to New York, I had a lot of experience as a performer. And through a set of circumstances, this agent got me to come to New York, and I was cast in my first Broadway musical, my first day in New York City. So,
All right. Don't try this at home, people. What show was that?
1776.
So that was your Broadway debut. Had you seen, growing up, did you ever come to New York just on a family trip? Had you seen Broadway?
Yeah, I had during college, I had come on. Well, when we were really little, we traveled through New York City on our way to Morocco to meet our father. And it was my twin brothers, who my mother had on harnesses to keep track of them and me. I was 5, they were 2. And then, I mean, she was on her own with all these kids and flew in a Air Force transport plane to Morocco. And we made this stop from Fort Worth to in New York City. And I remember very clearly when I was 5 getting stuck in the middle of 57th Street with my mom and my 2 brothers on these harnesses and leashes she missed time crossing the street with the light, and the traffic was going, and I remember my mother had us all gathered around her like little chickens, little chicks, and the traffic was going, and I remember that as like my first experience of New York City. And then I remember going to finally getting to Morocco. My dad met us, and it was like something like in the middle of the night or something when we landed. And I remember getting off the plane and seeing my father because we hadn't seen him for a while. And I said, "What do you speak?" Because I was afraid he would speak.
He wouldn't speak English to
Yeah,
you
he
anymore.
wouldn't speak
Yeah.
English anymore. I remember that really clearly. I was like,
Um,
Dad, what do you speak?
wow. You had traveled so much at such a young age. It's really extraordinary. There are not that many people who sort of find their love and passion at such a young age, and then for an entire lifetime continue to have that same love for the thing or the luck to get to do it in the way. I mean, the idea that you got your first Broadway show, that's very unusual and remarkable. And so, did you just hit the ground running and stay in New York and just go from one thing to another and meet your community, like your first kind of professional community?
Well, I was really blessed to get to do 1776 because there were 2 women in the show, and then we had an understudy. Virginia Vestoff played Abigail Adams. I played Martha Jefferson, and I was 21. And Gretchen Cryer, the brilliant musical
Yes.
theater writer, lyricist writer, um, she was our standby for those 2. So it was 3, basically 2 women, our standby, and 30 men who were brilliant actors who could sing. And I got to study these guys firsthand. And, Howard Da Silva, who played um, Benjamin Franklin, and John Adams, who's played by William Daniels, and Paul Hecht played Dickinson. They all kind of mentored me. They were like, "You're very talented and you can do this and this, but you need to learn this." And they recommended the right acting schools to go to and stuff. So I'm very grateful that they were kind and mentored
Yeah,
me
we're
in that way.
generous.
And
Yeah.
that I did that show for 7 months, and then I got the leading lady role in Promises, Promises, which was written by Burt Bacharach and Hal David. And so after 7 months in New York, I went to London for a year and starred in that show in at the Prince of Wales Theatre in London, and which was an amazing year because I was far enough away that my parents couldn't, I was the first time I'd really been on my own. I mean, they came to visit, but they weren't calling me all the time and making sure, so I kind of like was venturing out into the big bad world of show business on my own at 22.
Really
That was
young.
quite a year. Yeah, I was nominated for an Evening Standard Award. I went to the luncheon and sat next to Laurence Olivier, um, Robert Mincham and Dudley Moore and somebody else took me to lunch. And then, what's his name? Richard, do you remember who?
Burton?
No, who I'm asking my assistant, but
Oh,
famous British actor. What? No. Well, anyway, another guy took me to dinner. It was like pretty interesting time period.
I feel like
I
that's
it was in the press, in the Evening Standard, that I thought I'd gone to see Fiddler on the Roof, the film, and I
yeah.
thought Topol was really cool. So Topol called me at the Prince of Wales Theatre, and they called me to the phone at the stage door, and he's like, "This is Topol," and I was like, "Oh, come on, don't put me on."
Who is it?
And I was like, "Who is this?" And I hung up on him. My one chance to go have dinner with Topol.
We're this close.
Yeah, it came and went.
Amazing. I mean, I just have this sort of image of you kind of wide-eyed and just open to the experiences. Were you a naturally confident person? Were you faking it till you made it? Like, what
I
was
I was confident in my skills. I was confident in my talent. I knew that I was talented because I people like they were very responsive to my singing from the time I was 11. Because I
right?
was for the beginning I was very small and had this I was 4 feet 8 inches tall forever, and then I grew to 4'11", and I was like, I know I'll be the first female jockey. And then, but I had this big voice, and wherever I went, when I sang, people would be like, "Oh, whoa," jump backwards and stuff. And that was like my secret weapon was the volume I could sing with, which was pretty funny. But then once I started performing, I loved the musical theater and I loved jazz musicians and I loved music. I mean, my two great loves are music and horses. And I just I wanted to be successful in show business so I could have a ranch and ride cutting horses. And so
Which I am talking to you today from a ranch
yeah.
where there are cutting horses where you show and compete, but you have absolutely mastered the vision that you had for.
Well, I rode horses for. I mean, I've had some wonderful champion cutting horses, and it took a while though I've kind of forgot my original vision, and then after 9/11, in the months that followed 9/11, I would wake up every day and think, I forgot to get my cutting horse, and I was so keenly aware that life is so fragile. And I was 55 when that around the time that happened, or I just was turning 55 that following summer, and I became obsessed with getting a cutting horse, and through all these calls I made around because I knew I had been a subscriber to the Cutting Horse Journal, the Cutting Horse Chatter, from the time I was 12, and I fell in love with the sport. I had my first competition horse. I got my first horse when I was 10 because I literally begged my father till he couldn't stand it anymore. And then that horse passed away when I was 12. And so my dad, literally, like, poor guy. And I forced him to get me a really good horse. And so I got this great little horse who was very fast. And I competed in junior horse shows and rodeos and stuff. And so then I saw the sport of cutting horses, and I was like, oh my God, I have to learn to ride cutting horses because I thought it was the coolest looking thing in the world. It's like the rider and the horse are like a dance pair. I don't know, it's just so cool. And there was this champion cutting horse rider named Sonny Perry who had this beautiful black stallion named Senior George. And he was so spectacular. And I followed this poor guy around in rodeo barns where, at horse shows, and I would like, Mr. Perry, Mr. Perry. I was like 12 and tiny. I was, Mr. Perry, how do you ride a horse like that? Mr. Perry, Mr. Perry, I got to know how you ride a horse like that because the competition is the horse is working on a loose rein to keep a cow separate from a herd of cows. And it's quite beautiful to watch. But the horse is doing all the work. And the rider is, sitting very still in the middle of the ride. And it's really incredible to watch. And he was like, get away from me, kid. And I was like, no, Mr. Perry, I need to know. Anyway, that was always what I wanted to do. And then after 9/11, I was like, I have to do this. So I connected ultimately with one of the top trainers in the sport, who was a guy named Bill Freeman, who had at that point won more money than anybody in the sport. And he took me on as a student and told me, because I had ridden since I was, when I was a kid, that I wasn't too old to learn and that he would help me find my first cutting horse, which he did. And I got this spectacular horse who was like a champion. And I started traveling with my trainer and his wife to horse shows, cutting horse shows all around the country. And I started winning, and I got a belt buckle, and it's like a couple of them actually. And it was so fun. It was just the best, the best, the best.
Debbie, what you're describing as even just one aspect of someone's life would have been extraordinary if from a little girl you just focused on cutting horse and competition. But the fact that like you have succeeded at a very high level in two completely different genres.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. I was fortunate to ride some really great horses, but no, the frustration of riding cutting horses was, I waited so late to do it, and I hadn't kept my riding skills up. And so it was like trying really hard at 55 to become a good. I mean, I did a good job in the competitions because I had phenomenal horses that were very well trained. But
Like,
I didn't become the kind of champion I had planned on being because I waited too late. I could have done this years ago, but I just forgot because I got so busy with being a better actress and getting better and practicing, being able to become a better singer, and working really hard to perfect those skills. And so, yeah, but it wasn't until 9/11 happened, I was like, oh, wait a minute, what did I forget to do? So, but I'm very blessed to get to live at this ranch. And um, one of my horses passed away at the end of, at my wonderful first cutting horse, Purple Badger, passed away after 3 years. He had a brain aneurysm, which was a huge tragedy. And he was like my best friend, my perfect friend, my teacher, my first cutting horse. And that was just like so heartbreaking. I can't tell you. And then in the meantime, my trainer had gotten me to buy a second horse. And then I bought a third horse after Badger passed away. So I had two horses for quite a few years. Wildman Bill, who was also a champion, but Wildman Bill is so beautiful. He looks like the horse the prince rides in on in a fairy tale, and he knows he's really beautiful. And like we would go into the cutting horse, to the show arena, and I would make mistakes because my first horse, my trainer said, that horse, Purple Badger, he's taking care of you. And I said, yeah, I know that. And he said,
Right.
so, because I kept making mistakes. And you can see in the videos with him, like I would give Badger the wrong cue and his ears would go like, that's the wrong cue. And then he'd do the right thing. And so he made me get this other horse whose name is Wildman Bill, who's this gorgeous little sorrel horse. I still have Bill. He's fabulous.
How old
And
is Bill?
he's like 25 at this point. I got him when he was 5. And so I would I'd give him the wrong cue and he would just stop cutting in the middle of the show like, can you see this? Who can work with somebody like this? And I was like, stop, don't do that to me. He was hilarious. And then I got another horse after Badger passed away, and his name was Smart Scat Cat. And he was a bay horse and quite wonderful. I mean, really wonderful. And he passed away at the end of November when I was in LA for a brief trip out there, which was heartbreaking. The only problem with horses is when they pass away, you never get over it. It's really,
I want to make a very inelegant association because you said that the horse's name was Scat Cat,
Smart Scat Cat.
small Scat Cat. And obviously, because of your imprint on Grizabella for decades now, right? Like it's such a beloved, obviously, the role gave you a lot in your career, and
Mhm.
you gave yourself so wholly to it in developing it to become the thing that is iconic. And
Thank you.
of course, I mean, it's an honor to speak with you today. Truly. But
Thanks very much.
there's this new um version isn't the right word. There's this glorious ball going on in New York right now. The Jelly.
Yeah, it's so great.
It's so amazing. And so I wonder for you, who has just lived with this project and this the role, I thought it was extraordinary. I thought it was a truly extraordinary,
I agree, without a doubt.
right? Like just so, I mean, visionaries created it, and every single dancer and singer in this show, they are the most spectacular human beings. Like what they are doing and what
Aren't they? Yeah.
sharing with us is just incredibly beautiful. And whether you are an audience member who's really deeply connected to the art form of, a ballroom, or just a tourist who had no idea where to go and their concierge sent them there that night,
Mhm.
there's a community forming of people who are deeply connected to this world and people who are learning it for the first time, which I think is what makes theater in general so special.
Yeah.
But I assume you've seen it maybe more than once, and I wonder how it has felt to kind of see this role that has been
Well, thank you for the question. And is Amanda, are you still there? Amanda?
I am still here. I
Yeah,
did
can you
send,
please send her the editorial? I mean
yes,
the
I did. But I know I sent you a lot of links. It was a recent editorial.
I mean,
Alana
I'm sorry, it was
it's okay.
an
I
op-ed that
an
I sent
op-ed.
to the New York Times about my feelings about it. So I'd love you to read that. Um,
will. For people
it's
listening, I would love for them to even like a couple of sound
Well,
bites.
I saw the very first performance downtown at
Yeah.
PAC, and I loved it. I was fascinated by the setting, which I knew really didn't know anything about. And so then I followed its evolution, and I was there opening night, and I just was, it's where it was downtown. And there, Amanda just sent you the piece.
Yeah.
And
Thank
but
you.
anyway, take a look at that because I spent a lot of time working on that piece about how it translates to this ball setting.
In an
Uh,
extraordinary, seamless way.
it's beautiful, and it really taught me a lot. And I'm just so deeply moved by all of it, the design, the designer's work, the director's work, all of the ensemble. I adore them. And so I was there opening night on Broadway. And then recently I went back and saw it again, and I was a guest judge. So that was really cool. I really, really had such a great time.
That's amazing. I want to talk about this album. I'm of an age where we call them albums. I don't know what people call music being put out in the world now, but that's what I'm going to call it because that's what it feels like to me. Um, when you are compiling or trying to figure out a concert that you're putting together, which luckily for us humans, it was recorded really beautifully. I
Thank
mean,
you.
the instrumentals, I mean, of course, your voice, the song choices, it's so eclectic and wonderful, but your band is also extraordinary. Those
They're
instrumentals,
amazing.
they are amazing. And from the minute the needle drops, it is thrilling and you get chills.
Thank
Also,
you.
you are in such incredible voice in this concert.
Thank you.
Just stunning. I just wonder, how do you, I mean, I'm like, next album, I need to hear Steam Heat, like all these things that have been with you for so long. How did you decide it's going to be this concert and these songs, and I want them recorded? And if it comes out as well as I hope it does, this is something that means something to me, and I want to share it, like deeply want to share it.
Well, there's this beautiful record company called Palmetto Records, and my executive there is a woman named Missy Colazzo. And they've released quite a few of my albums at this point, including Ghostlight, which is an incredible studio album produced by T-Bone Burnett, the great
Wow. Amazing.
Grammy, Oscar, Emmy winning producer and musician and friend. We grew up together in Fort Worth, and he had his own studio by the time he was 17. He recorded the first recording of my voice when we were both 18.
Are you
And
kidding? You
yeah, and
are
that our
lifetime.
mothers got us together, and but I knew him growing up, and another friend named Stephen Bruton, who's a major guitar player, who has worked with Chris Christopherson and Bonnie Raitt and stuff. And Stephen Bruton's dad, Sumter Bruton, his father was a jazz drummer, and he was one of the trio of musicians that I worked with at the Casa del Sol when I was in college. When I was learning to be a performer, I sang in this jazz club with them. And his dad had a wonderful record store in Fort Worth called Record Town. So we all knew each other because of, we would meet at Record Town. Anyway, years went by, and there was only one reel-to-reel recording of that original recording. And I sent it to my first agent, Roger Hess, who got me to come to New York and got me my first audition for 1776 and started my whole career, because of his dedication and belief in me. And so he was golf buddies with Phil Bursch of Playbill, the magazines and the theaters, and he started his own record company called Playbill Records. This was some years ago, and so Phil Bursch wanted to release that recording, so he did. And it was called 1967 or whatever it was called, and but it was my first album that I never had, and by then I had several albums. I mean, this I think is my 20th album. And so then T-Bone called me back then and said, I want us to make a new album. So we made Ghostlight, which is phenomenal. It's quite an extraordinary art piece. It's really, I'm so blessed to have gotten to work with him after, we're still good friends from back in school. So anyway, Palmetto, they distributed that album, and I've done several albums with them, several live albums, story songs, and I can't remember all the titles, but there's quite a few.
Yeah.
And so I put together. It takes Christian and I, my pianist, arranger, music director for almost going on 20 years. It takes us about 6 months to do a new collection of songs. We do that every year, and fortunately, Joe's Pub always invites us to come to do a series of 3 nights. And it's wonderful for me because apart from horses, which is my greatest love, standing on a stage with brilliant musicians and sharing music that I love with this phenomenal pianist, arranger, and percussionist, and my beloved bass player, my percussionist Kato Ogawa, my beloved bass player for 40 years, Tony Marino, and um, um, my brilliant guitar player, Jordan Jordan Peters. Um, it's so much fun. I mean, it's really great. And I've always thought of myself as a kind of painter. And every year I do a new collection of paintings and then I share them. And then thankfully, Missy at Palmetto um, pays to get them out there, to release them, which is a real gift, because I like the fact that the body of work that I've created is, you can get it and it's releasable. It's been recorded. So last spring, in 2025, I'm not, as I've said in the past, I'm not a nostalgist. I'm not somebody that really likes to, just repeat the past. It's like I'm not. I like to discover what's pertinent and new, and what I really feel now. Like songs that I have done and been associated with, like when I was in my when I was 35, and even when I was in my 40s. I don't feel the same way about what those songs convey. Like when I was a kid, a young performer, I was very much, everything was like about longing and a cry of the heart and proving myself. And as I've aged, or as I've gotten older, thankfully, I don't feel that anymore. I just feel something else, but I don't feel that. And so I look for material that is meaningful in the present moment. And then I send it to Christian and I say, this is what I hear for this. And sometimes he's not interested in it. And then I have to talk him into it. And then sometimes he'll say no and I agree with him. And sometimes we'll try something and it doesn't work. But I picked these songs because they're really, they speak to the heart of the present moment. Things like On the 4th of July and by James Taylor and
But then you also have the times they are changing and you have Stuck in the Middle with You. Like it is there's such incredible choices because
thank you.
on the page you'd be like, how does this
Yeah,
create a cohesive story? And yet
yeah,
when you listen to it, the order with which you've recorded them and the way the story gets told, it works. Like it
yeah,
works
thanks.
beautifully. It's
Yeah,
very
it's interesting. I look for things that I think are going to speak to the heart of our cultural moment. Like, what are we going through as a community that should be addressed so we can be in a situation, with music to pull us into this commonality and common point of view. And I look for material that's going to take the audience through a process where they feel what they really feel and remember who they really are. And that's my
there's a
job.
song called Memory on this album. And I
Mhm.
wonder if I mean, obviously that's a word that is very connected to you. Um, Literally, figuratively, how did you decide I'm going to include that?
Well, people always love it when I sing it. And, I used to always do it as my encore, but then now when I'm in Middle America or I'm in other cities other than New York City, if the audience is especially wonderful, I'll do it as a second encore, right?
Present.
And I always have it in my book, and most of the time in the present, I don't feel compelled to do it unless the circumstances really ask it of me. But when we were fooling around, and I don't know, I just felt like again, because of this present moment of time and what we're going through as a community, as a culture,
Yeah.
memories seem to be resonant and about that. And I asked Jordan, my wonderful guitar player, to play a new introduction.
Oh, really,
Um,
it's quite a
and
surprise.
yeah, and it sets the mood is still exactly what it always was, but the environment is a little different musically, and it's quite I think it's quite beautiful. I wasn't sure I was going to include it in the album, and then when I heard the final mix of it, I thought, yeah, it's nice. So
I'm so glad you did because you hear that intro and you lean in because we have this Pavlovian response in a way. We
yeah.
know what it's meant to be. And so you throwing in that beautiful kind of instrumental surprise as
Mhm.
and it's so special. It's so
Thank you.
cool. It is very inspiring to see someone um sort of committed to life and reinvention and passion in the way that you have and continue to grow as a human. It's very easy to take what we know and just keep retreading. And the
Yeah,
way
I don't like that, but thank
you
you
haven't done
for
that,
noticing.
it's extraordinary. I want to let you get back to your horses and your land and your friends, family, and so congrats on the record. Congrats on just really one of the most extraordinarily generous artistic lives that you've shared with us.
Thank you, Elena. You're so kind.
It's just from the heart. Like part of doing this podcast allows me to say thank you to people whose work has changed me, moved me, inspired me, and gotten me through really difficult times. And it's rare to say thank you in person to an
Oh,
artist.
so sweet. Thank you very
Happy to
much.
do that. Before I let you go, to honor the name of my podcast, Little Known Facts, you've already shared a lot. Is there something you can share before we say goodbye about Betty Buckley?
Well, I'm a rabid fan of Korean filmmaking and television. I love Korean and I love BTS. I'm a huge BTS fan. And I share that with Leah Salonga and a couple other people on Instagram, and we're always sending each other videos. I love BTS. I love Jungkook. And but I love Korean television and filmmaking. There's something so wondrous about how they tell their stories, their aesthetic, their cinematography, the storytelling, the acting. I love them, and I really want to go. I made this with Christian, my pianist, this animated short film called The Mayfly with my friend Sue Parado, who was the director, and I wrote it and narrated it, and Christian composed the music, and it won a lot of awards last year in the the film festival circuit, and I was so hopeful that we would get into the Korean Film Festival in South Korea in Busan, and we didn't get accepted. I was like, damn it! But if we had gotten into that, I was prepared to fly. And I'm looking for any reason to go to Korea. My friend Leah Salonga, the wonderful actress, singer, award-winning actress, singer, she went with some girlfriends to see BTS in concert in Busan. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you didn't tell me about it. And she,
Well, we have a lot of listeners there, so you never know. This may make a great.
oh, I am dying to go
All
to Korea.
right. Well, Betty, thank you. Have a most wonderful day, and until next time.
Thank you, Elena. Take care.
Bye bye.